All right, cool. Thank you guys for coming today. And on this panel, we have accumulatively how much money we have in this. Talk about blockchain game funds, like how much we have right now, right? I think we have more than 200 million worth of dollar in game fund. But let's start with Brett to give everyone a brief introduction. Brett.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm here from Forte Labs, and we put a $100 million fund together with Ripple. In part, we're collaborators on 2 open source projects that we have integrated into our Layer 2 platform, Interledger and Codius for hosting secure computation. And the fund is entirely earmarked for third-party developers to support their effort to integrate with our platform. So.
Cool. Julian?
Hi guys, I'm Julian. I'm a CEO of Sesame Seed. We run a super representative on Tron, and we've actually launched a crowdsourced or a funding platform on Tron to help raise awareness of developers on the platform itself, and basically directly connect the community to a developer, provide them with those resources as well as funding.
Cool. Okay. Ray?
My name is Ray Zhang. I'm the Vice President of Gumi Inc., which is a public mobile game company in Japan. I'm also the Managing Director of Gumi Cryptos, which is a blockchain crypto dedicated venture capital fund. Although this fund is not only investing in gaming, blockchain gaming, but we definitely see gaming is one of the key genres that blockchain may work. So that's the areas that we keep a close eye on it. Definitely want to work together with other industry players to support the blockchain game to grow.
Awesome, right? Just following on your question, like you guys not only look into games, but in the game industry or crypto or blockchain game industry, are you guys looking into the game content or tools as well, right? So, Ray, you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. So from a purely venture capital point of view, at this moment, we are looking for more platform and tools that to enable any game developers to create a gaming content that on top of blockchain. But on the other side, because of our the background corporation, Gumi is a gaming company. We also interested in the contents too. Actually, we if some of you know Micro Heroes, that's now probably top 1 ranking crypto game. Gumi is the largest shareholder of that company, so we're interested in both.
Congrats. Julian, I think you guys are majorly looking into the content as well, right?
Yeah, so obviously being a community first, one of the largest on Tron, our focus is exactly what the community is looking for, which is right now games are a fantastic way to drive adoption to Tron, to the platform, to the and support our constituents. So at the end of the day, to provide any kind of connection from the user to the blockchain is our priority. And right now, games have been hugely successful. We've had, we've successfully funded Dig, Eggies, a few games so far, and we're looking to continue funding down that path. So,
awesome, Brett.
Yeah, we're entirely focused on developers and trying to equip developers with great tools that sort of meet the expectations of what free-to-play developers are using now to manage their game economies. So really rich, robust data reporting, easy-to-use DevOps tools, and a lot of framework for smart contracts and other pieces just to make deploying this stuff a little bit less scary and safe. But yeah, the fund we put together is entirely for that. We're doing nothing direct to consumer yet.
All right. So for the content per se, right? What particular genre of game or what type of games in blockchain you'll be looking at so that will attract Forte's or Ripple's investment?
Yeah. So we're kind of looking at three prongs of use cases that we think make sense today. The first is peer-to-peer economies, or the desire in existing games to have peer-to-peer marketplaces, or at least something closer to that than the game publisher having to perform as a middleman and resolve all the counterparty risk. So there are some existing games out there taking that risk on and running that sort of operation, but usually it's not living up to what their designers hope for. So we think we can basically run a better and much more cost-effective solution. The second prong is augmentation of existing game economies. So we think there are ways to sort of safely silo and introduce blockchain-backed game systems into existing game economies in a way that doesn't present tremendous risk to disrupting the whole rest of a game economy, especially if it's a already published game that's performing well. And the third prong is pure peer-to-peer economies. So these may or may not run the entire game on public networks and smart contracts, but the entirety of value and property lives on blockchain tech. So we're kind of we're starting with peer-to-peer. We're doing some augmentation stuff and just kind of getting ourselves acquainted with more like dApp developers that want to lean more in this direction, and we sort of want more of the public networks.
Cool. Julian?
I suppose the kind of most important piece from our perspective is a good, strong token economy. So building something that really not just supports those that participated in trying to get community off the ground, but as well as encouraging them to participate is pretty huge. So some of the best ways that we've found to do that is through a peer-to-peer economy, obviously, as well as a marketplace, a very strong ability for somebody to want to participate is fantastic. So from our perspective, building a very strong or robust token economy right from the start ensures that the interests of the developer are matched to those of the community. So that's probably the first place that we're looking.
Cool. Right?
Yep. So there's several game genres that we think will work perfectly in the blockchain, decentralized environment. First one, Minecraft and Roblox game type of game, because the original concept of that is enable anyone to build anything on top of it. So we feel exciting. Yeah. So to see those type of games comes out. Another one is a card playing game. So because that game design actually collection, you're able to collect it and you use it just like Magic the Gathering, right? You collect the game, you collect the card, and you use it to play the game. So these two types of games we're really looking, expecting some developers can come out with a good idea. Actually, Golan Chain actually do a pretty job on that. I see that visual of that pretty good. I think our concept is if you design a game that deemed to be a decentralized environment playing game, then it should be on blockchain. Otherwise, a centralized environment may work it perfectly for that already. Yes, you may enable the trading some assets, but you can still doing a centralized game, enable trading assets, just like in the past. Diablo 3, you have the auction house, you enable people trading assets, right? So
how'd that work out?
Yeah, that worked out. So
I don't think Blizzard thought it worked out very well, or the players.
Yes.
For Tron, I mean, particularly like you guys, I put in a more traditional genre definition. I look at particularly simulation, including Idle. I look at strategy games, or another genre I call that game of chance, and game of skills. They're basically these four categories. But for me, these four categories are all like economy games.
Sure.
To me, like blockchain games, in a nutshell, why it stands out from miscellaneous, really a sophisticated game platform, either PC, mobile, console, or Google, whatever they're doing, is that can help users benefit from economy-wise, right? And so that's why the games we're looking at particularly has to relate it to the economy, in a nutshell. But another interesting to these game investment, I think it gets we can start with Ray on that. How do you justify the return on the investment? Like you spend a lot of money on My Crypto Hero, right?
Yeah. So talking about just now at the beginning, I mentioned, so from a purely venture capital point of view, at this moment, we're more keen to invest in the general platform tools to enable the whole environment to grow. And talking about a specific game, we think just like a platform like Tron or EOS or other public chains, they actually welcome more applications to launch on the top of their platform, enable to have more users, more usage of the blockchains. This make a perfect sense for them to invest in it, and also for the gaming companies who see a chance that in the future blockchain-based game can have a large enough market. They can starting to invest in and learn what happened in that area, how they design the game to fit into what blockchain can provide you. So My Crypto Hero is invested through the Gumi Inc., the gaming company directly, because we can combine the IP of gaming of Gumi who already have into the blockchain games. That could be a contribution to a blockchain game, and also on the other side, we can also learn and study an experimental blockchain game through the investment company.
Cool. Julian?
For us, it's kind of a unique scenario. So because we use our node rewards specifically to fund games on Tron, the return to us is not so much the priority that we have. We just want to support founding developers. So anybody that's coming out with something new wants to attach to a community. That's kind of our direction. At the end of the day, the real return that we're looking for is to those that participate in that crowdfunding itself. So we've seen, obviously, some forms of in-game assets and in-game currency. Things like that are very typical. But from our perspective, the reason that people contribute to these games is because it's fair, which is kind of intrinsically the foundation of why games on blockchain is because it's fair. There's not somebody that can go to a server and say, and now there's 11 swords. It just can't happen, depending on how it's built. But that's why it's so important to those that participate. So from our perspective, again, to your point, it's the token economy being structured in a way that's fair and that gives the return back to the players first. Our return is fantastic, but that's not our founding principle.
Cool. Brett?
The fund we put together is not built to return anything except for developer adoption and hopefully better game designs. That's the whole purpose. We want to make this technology much easier to use and bring the game industry around to using it.
So I'm looking forward to invest whatever Brett, Julian, and Ray is invested in to maximize my return. So I think it's a kind of a wrapping up question now, but right now we see blockchain games, they're running about from 2 digits DAU to 3 digits, but no more than 5 or no more than 4 digits are DAU. When do you think the first 100K DAU or the first 1 million DAU could happen, and how? Okay, Brett, you want to take that?
Well, I think we could actually make it happen really quickly if we wanted to. You could augment an existing game economy that had that kind of user base with a sort of universal enough game system where almost every user would touch it, every daily active user, and transact in some fashion on a predictable cadence. You could do it right now. Whether it be a benefit to the game or not, it's just a matter of design. And if it's an already successful game with that kind of DAU, as a developer, you should be concerned with messing with anything that works, at least in a haphazard way. So I actually expect this will happen in the space of maybe 6-12 months, maybe less. There's nothing stopping it right now.
Awesome. Julian?
Yeah, I think you're dead on. I think six to 12 months, that sounds totally reasonable. And to your point, you could just go ahead and bolt, blockchain onto some existing economy. The kind of challenges behind that, there are obviously things like making sure that the game itself has a wallet or some way to interact with that blockchain. But those are obstacles that are pretty simple to overcome on Tron, for example. I think.
Have they done it yet then?
Well, they have. There's all kinds of applications on Tron today that they automatically generate the user a wallet instantly at the time that they interact with the game. That happens. So I mean that's a great way to adopt. Bolt on to automate that whole piece. The other kind of thing is that I was actually going to touch on is that the DAUs right now that we're seeing are mostly from those that are within the blockchain economy today that are built in there. They're interested, and that's how they're finding it. So to your point, I think it's looking for those outside and coming in and bringing that user base.
Well, I think if you look at the history of gaming from PC game to mobile game and also including the console game, so originally every time there's a new platform comes out, the user is actually pretty low. But one key content that can change the whole thing. So talking about the timing, I would say as soon as there's one studio comes out with a content that provide a unique fun that you cannot experience without blockchain, without a token economy to build on it, then that's the timing you will come out. It's not about a lot of people talking about the throughput of blockchain, the scalability of blockchain is not good enough. But the thing about when iPhone comes out, the first the iPhone, how powerful it is. What kind of game you can play on it. When PC comes out, the first PC game is pretty simple. So you have to think about what type of game you should build on top of blockchain, utilize all including the feature they provide to you, and also adjust your game to afford all the the drawbacks they offer to you. And when you think you can find the perfect match about the gameplay, then that's the timing.
Totally awesome. Sounds great. And from Tron, whatever you guys invest in, whatever game, I'll help you guys to get the traffic. So from my perspective, the question is like, for the first 100 gig game, I always say it happens in 3 months. The first 1 million game, it happens in 6 months. That's my pipeline. That's not my prediction. All right.
I expect to see that too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because that's our dedication to work on BitTorrent and all these partners, so that we can bring the traffic and bring these users to blockchain, so that everybody can benefit from the ecosystem. Working on the community, working from tools and the ecosystem, working on from traditional on and off chain collaboration. That's why we are here, right? Cool. I think this is all my questions I have. So maybe we can take some questions.
Go on then, let's see if we can get a question from the audience. Is there a question out there? Who wants to ask? This is your chance to talk to the people who have the deep pockets and more.
We have combined over $250 million on this panel. So
I think that this is a very critical thing, and I remember when Facebook apps and games came out, but I'm going to call bullshit. And I'm going to say it on one reason, and maybe I'm wrong, because I know I'm wrong about 60% of what I do, even though I run a fund, is if they could have bolted on, why haven't the games with super vibrant virtual currencies always done it? Or the big platforms with billions of users like Facebook? And I think part of it's compliance and risk. So, I mean, like when Facebook goes down last week, they're not going to open up a blockchain instead of Facebook Cash and take that compliance risk. Same thing with WoW. Same thing with any other group. So I think there's maybe something that they can't do that's an opportunity for people who did it on mobile games and other places ad-based or whale-based or whatever, and I want to wonder what that discussion really is, and what you're not telling us when you think it's going to be in 3 and 6 months. and why you're paying on Tron money for free for people to get on there if it was so easy for everybody to do it.
You want to start with that?
There's lots of questions there.
I didn't
I'm
understand.
not sure which part was the question, but I'll start with the.
Well, they were all leading questions.
yeah.
You want to jump in the quagmire, go ahead if you want to.
Well, I think you could look at trends as apparently inevitable as mobile adoption, not even 10 years ago, and say, why wasn't Mario there in 2009 or 10 or 11? It takes a long time to steer these big game companies toward new emergent trends. And for sure, the FUD and the reality of regulatory compliance being difficult, technology not being very well understood, the actual differentiating value prop versus traditional architecture also not being very well understood. I think it's just going to take a little while for people to do their homework.
I think that's totally right. I think that's definitely the reason. I'm going to throw another one, which is probably not the reason, but it's something to consider. It's too fair. It's on the blockchain because it's inarguable. It's on a distributed ledger. It's fair. If you build a game and you want to tweak, amounts of in-game assets, or if you want to pull tokens off yourself or whatever, that's all totally transparent and visible. So it's fair. That's a plus to those that play, but it's something to consider when you're developing.
I don't think game developers want to manage their economies in unfair ways. I think they're just really complex, and it's really like you have to expose a ton of levers if you're going to manage a modern free-to-play economy with any depth, and it's really freaking hard even for the smartest of us. So having this whole paradigm shift of thinking about managing a treasury of tokens or items that are more difficult to print more of or reduce the supply of is, that looks initially like fewer levers with the same amount of risk. I think it takes a little more work to consider that this may actually alleviate the difficulty in managing these big complex economies over time.
I think you should consider it as not every game have every crypto game has a coin, has a token in it. So because just think about it as it's just in the current game, mobile game or PC game, there's in-app purchase, there's assets in the games. So, but it's just in the past, it's in a closed environment that you have to work within the environment. Now it's open source, it's decentralized, it's a free. Fluent outside of the game. So I think it's more about the business model that the gaming companies is facing. Business model changing the gaming development and publisher is facing. So it's just like in the past when initially the game is by the game developers is selling games, then they're starting to charge by timing. Right, online games. Later, they changed the business model to in-app purchase, free-to-play games. Now you have to consider a business model that works in a decentralized, open, environment. How you collect all the transaction. Maybe now, yes, you see a lot of transactions happen because of the ownership of it. So you have to think about how to build a business model by obtaining all the returns through the transactions rather than the initial game, in selling of this.
We saw that problem with our guys at Second Life. That's what they brought in The Economist. I worked on iTunes. And all these are really ecosystems. Now, the question is, do you initially frictionlessly get people in with a freemium model, with a whale model that gets
Well,
scaled, or is it...
Can I, we haven't got time to go into too much detail on that. I'm going to chuck my response to you, though, because when I was starting out in mobile gaming in 2001, mobile gaming in 2001, when we built the 3 platform in the UK, basically people were saying there's going to be no need to have cameras on phones. Right? Seriously?
Yeah.
And then they said there was going to be no need for smartphones. Who would want a smartphone was one of the most common things told to me in 2003. Who would want to play games on a phone all the way up to 2006? And when you realise that you got people like Ilkka Paananen and Christian Segazari who were supplying me games in 2003, the first games that we put live as 3G, and they're now where? Well, we all know where Ilkka is. May have heard of Supercell. or vainglory. These people who did make that step are the ones who own the space. The people who owned the space before don't anymore. Yeah, that's the answer, I think, to your fundamental
So
question.
can we add one more question?
God,
Let's-
I'm
I
going
just
to
wanna
get
give
crucified here. Which one? You pick, so I don't get into trouble.
All right. Oh, sure.
All right.
He's earlier. No. Actually.
Hi. Sorry, I'm that guy now. All right, yeah. So I guess my question was: it seems like there's like this general consensus that games are either going to be directly built on the blockchain, and one of those is going to be the killer DApp, or that it's mainly like there's going to be a token, kind of like Engine Coin or something, that's just a medium of exchange for your tokenized assets. So I was wondering if you guys have a particular bias on which direction you think the space is going to go. And then also kind of a side thing, like why there isn't a focus on the currency itself that are used within these games.
So what are the options?
So basically, like CryptoKitties, like all on the blockchain, just tokenized assets, and using the blockchain is to exchange those, and then also just why not the currency itself?
Well, I think games are going to have a lot of use cases that can benefit from having fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens. I think as soon as you take on fungible tokens, it's a real different design challenge in managing the economy, and I think that's why initially it's just the light bulb goes off quicker for game designers to think of items rather than soft currencies or resources generally. But I think there are advantages to both, and I think I actually, we talk about this internally quite a bit about whether the industry as is going to suffer classic innovator's dilemma stuff and not move fast enough in response to this. And there are signs of what looks like exponential growth in dApps, even though the numbers are still small. But I think there's enough incremental benefit in the game industry's current modus operandi to adopt this stuff slowly and produce really big adoption numbers, both in end users and transaction volume and all the things that the public networks care about, they both look like very viable options. We're more focused on the game industry as is because that's where most of the developer attention is right now.
I'm not sure you include this option in it or not. So if you mentioned whether a purely digital crypto payment as one of the direction, I definitely think that's won't work. You adding another payment method to the existing gaming industry ecosystem doesn't mean anything. I think, actually last night I joined another panel about blockchain games, and one of the audience also asked a question about what percentage we should put on-chain, what percentage we should put off-chain. I think it purely depends on how you design the game. If it's a game that the only about the asset trading part is the core of the thing, then you put that part in on-chain, allow trading only. The rest is just a normal off-chain game. And on the other side, you think about when CryptoKitty comes out, nobody think about breathing, the two cats getting together, breathe another new cat. That's fun. But there's a good way to think about what blockchain can enable you to do that, can do, and that's one of the things you can think about it. So when you design a game, if you think it should be on-chain, then make it on-chain. If it's should be off-chain, then make it off-chain. I don't have a clear answer on that.
I think it's going to be mostly not entirely on-chain games. I don't think that's going to be like the first huge thing, because you can do really simple things with current off-chain games. You can do what block are they at? What generate a random number? You can do a very simple API call to a blockchain like it's nothing. You can just pull basic information, and then you can do the next step, like, hey, save. Let's generate a hashed save state of the game, and this is it, and it's a token, and we'll just look at the token the next time we pull it up. So it could be extremely simple. And the first one to do that simple one on a big blockchain is going to be extremely visible and
Like Tron.
Yes, exactly.
From my perspective, like looking through all the game projects, like working with us, hybrid game, like on-chain, off-chain, hybrid mode is definitely the way to go. If you're still talking about like a CryptoKitty, like 100% on-chain, it's not going to happen. It's definitely on-chain, off-chain. That's going to happen probably last the next 2-3 years, and that's why I think like for example, 40 is building all the toolkits is about, and Coco's building all the toolkits is about. Layer 2 technology is coming. It's definitely extensive leverage on that, and also another key like trend we see. The most successful games on blockchain so far, what do we witness? That they always have their own token, right? You have a token as a way to, number one, to make it an open economy. Number two, to engage the users. Number three, you have to build the whole economy where the new user, old user, farmer, trader, the company all at the same time. So I think these are some key pillars to consider.
And on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.